All right, welcome to the sim. This is a video I wanted to put together for you, Jose, for quite a while. Took a while since I wasn't here out on business trips and whatnot. Also, I was waiting for all the parts to get here. So now that we have all the pieces together, I can kind of show you what my setup looks like. Got my little Wing rudder pedal box here that I'm actually using as a keyboard stand. Got my joystick the joypad controller over here. Got a little remote USB socket that I can plug into. This is what I use to plug my headset into when I want to talk on ATC. And I'll give you a quick little tour. So as you know, this is kind of a conglomeration of a lot of Wing parts and some little hacky stuff that I've been working on, Stream Deck and whatnot. So let's start from the left. As you already know, this is our tried and true, the PFP3N from Wing. I love it. I just love having, the ability to kind of navigate all of the controls that you would do on the FMC, especially for programming. And we'll actually do that today. I'm going to make this into a long vid just so you can kind of see what I do for my kind of start to finish. And of course, I'll preface this by saying I am not a real pilot. You know that. So I'm just using guides that I've actually picked up along the way through the various flight simmers that are on the internet. Okay, so next to the PFP, obviously, as you have as well, the PAP3, and I've got the PDC3N on the left-hand side for the 737NG, and then on the right-hand side, got the PDC3M for the 737 MAX. Actually, I end up using this in this view here. So when I'm looking at the co-pilot's primary flight display and this ND, I will actually, the navigation display, I will actually control his one from here, and then I'll control mine from here, and then I'll end up looking at mine over on this display that I've got over here. And once again, maybe I didn't go through this before, but I'm using the pop-up manager in order to pop out these screens here. So let me actually just close this down real quick, and I'll show you how that works. So you can run pop-up manager, this guy here, MSFS pop-up manager. You can program which ones you want to actually pop out, and I've got these three set up here. So when I say start pop-out, you'll see the mouse actually moves over here, and it's actually starting to pop out the displays one by one. And there we go, and then you'll see that I change it to black, just so that the top bars aren't as visible. And then I'll just scoot this back over here. I should reset the settings for this. All right, so now that I have my primary flight display here, I've got my navigation display here, and I've got my engine display here, I left this corner open for a little tool that I recommend you use once you get the hang of it, which is Beyond ATC. And I know you've started playing with ATC right now on the flight sim with the Microsoft one, but I think I might have shown you like some demos of this before where they're using AI voices to make it sound more regional. Like you'll have the accents from the various countries. So if you're flying Mexico, I think I've shown you the Mexico controller and the pilots that are talking. It actually sounds more real. It's not just that Microsoft English that you get. So that it's a one-time purchase for the Beyond ATC, $19.99 I think, or maybe $35, can't remember. But you don't have to use the payware add-on AI voices. That one actually you have to buy credits, and then you end up burning those down as you fly. But the basic one is well good enough for me, so I would recommend that once you start getting more into the real ATC and you're starting to kind of crave the authentic flight feel. You can definitely look into that. And it also does tie together with SimBrief. Now, I don't know if you've already started using SimBrief, but that is a godsend for when you're actually doing a lot of these IFR flights with jetliners. And so I'll make a separate video of that, or you can probably find tutorials on how you can use SimBrief. You can use the SimBrief plugin inside Microsoft Flight Simulator. So once you've actually created your flight, you can then import it directly in there. And I'll show you here. Down on your PMDG iPad, you can go to electronic flight bag, and I could just tap here on request data from SimBrief. It will pull down my flight that I've already programmed in SimBrief. And also in Volanta, you can do the same here. You can just click on import from SimBrief, and then it will pull down. Okay, that's funny. Let's close Volanta 1 second. Let's try that again. Import from SimBrief. Okay, let's take a look since we were having problems. So SimBrief, if you haven't created an account, you can create a free account here. Once you've done that, you can then start creating new flights. I've got this flight from Fukuoka to Okayama right now. Let me just edit it and I'll touch it once. And let's wait for this. Let's use current time. Yep. Okay, there's the route. We generate. And I'll briefly show you here. Let me quit Flight Sim real quick. Let's go back up to main menu. Let's check if Volanta actually picks it up now. Should. There we go. Alright, so Beyond ATC is up and running. We've got Volanta up and running. And we've got our flight loaded here. Okay, so before I actually start Beyond ATC, we need to make sure that the flight is started. So we'll go ahead and do that. Maybe we'll take a pause real quick. So let's go ahead and set up our flight. Go to World Map. And you'll want to install the SimBrief plugin. And once you do that for the flight simulator, you'll actually get this little button down here called SimBrief. And this will allow you to pull in the same data that we were just looking at over here on our SimBrief. So let's go ahead and flight. So this is JAL 3130 from RJFF to RJOB. Say generate flight. That'll create the flight and that'll become active on SimBrief. Move that down here. And if we look over here, you'll see that that RJFF to RJOB JAL 3130, that's here. So I can click on view flight. And that same information that we saw down here is now in the sim. You can then click import route. That'll move the maps around and it's finished importing. Okay, so once that's done, because by default it'll start on the departing runway, which we don't want. We actually want to do a nice push from the gate. I'm gonna pick gate 10. There's that 10. Set that as my departure. And we'll leave the arrival as automatic. We'll keep the weather just clear skies just to keep it simple. I've picked my tried and true JAL Gundam plane today, so we'll use that. And go ahead and click on fly. All right, so now we're all set up. Got SimBrief running, got Volanta running, and the flight sim up and running. Okay, and over here I've got Axis and O's. This is another cool little plugin. You have to pay like, I think it was 10 or 20 bucks. That allows you to bridge the flight simulator to the Stream Deck over here using the Stream Deck profile. And I think I've done a different video for you for all the different features on this, but let me just give you a quick tour of what you can do.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will close doors soon. Please be seated as soon as possible. Thank you. Boarding completed.
Okay, so there's a bug with that I need to actually fix. But for that cabin announcement, I am using this guy here called, where's my settings? There we go. Universal Announcer. And that plugin also comes up here. And you can configure different cabin attendants callouts at different phases of flight. So right now I'm in the pre-flight phase, and I was supposed to have the boarding, but that got screwed up. So we'll go ahead and we'll reset that. No worries. Okay. So let's request boarding. So for all the ground handling, I'm actually using a software called GSX, which you've probably seen too. This is really quite lovely. Sorry about the frame rate, but you can see the baggage handling and also the jet bridge. This jet bridge is not configured correctly. But as you can see, there's guys that are actually loading the baggage on there. And we do not want the pushback tug. We'll keep that off for right now. No. Let's just skip that. All right, so as our bags are being loaded, oh my God, look at that stutter. This is the shittiness of the 3060, or sorry, the 4060. I wish I got the 4070 Ti Super. Because I'm only getting 43 frames right now, but there's this like huge stutter. And I'm actually running another piece of software to actually dynamically bring the frame rate up. I don't know if you've seen this, but this little doggy icon here called MSFS Auto FPS. What this is actually doing is it's dynamically looking at my screen and changing the terrain level of detail and the object level of detail down in order to boost the frame rate. So like for example, if I'm on the ground, it doesn't really need to have terrain level of detail that high because I'm looking at just, you know, the gate around me. Whereas if I'm flying, then I don't need object level of details to be high because I'm not looking at things that are, you know, on the ground that close. So this is the way that I'm actually able to just push my FPS to like as maximum as I can take it. I've actually overclocked the 4060 now up to 2880 with the memory running at 8700 megahertz. So that's about the best I can do on this card. Again, you know, once I can get my hands on a better 4070 Ti Super one of these days, once it comes down in price, I think it'll have a much more buttery smooth experience. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump back into the cockpit here. And let's close this down. Let's take a look at Beyond ATC. So I'm gonna go ahead and connect by clicking on the fly button.
Display freeze.
And now that my SIM is connected, sure. This is now going to inject the air traffic control. And I can actually listen to the ATIS over here too, with voice.
May I see your boarding pass?
So let's switch to Fukuoka's ATIS here.
Visibility 10 miles or more. Few clouds at 2,500. Temperature 20. Dew point 08. QNH 1024. Wind tree 50 at 8. VFR conditions. Landing runway 16 left. Departing runways 16 left, 16 right. Transition level 140. Advise on initial contact. You have information, Mike. Fukuoka Airport information, Mike. 0106 Zulu. Wind variable. Visibility 10 miles or more. Few clouds at 2,500. Temperature 20. Dew point 0.
So what you were listening to right now was the local setting for the AI voice. That's a new feature in Beyond ATC. I personally like basic because the controller actually sounds more Japanese. So let's hear the difference between that and this one.
Arrow.
Fukuoka Airport information, Mike. 0106 Del. Wind variable. Visibility 10 miles OR few clouds at 2,500. テンパレチャー20、ブーポイント08、QNH1024、ウィンド350 at 8、VFR コンディションズ、ランディングランウェイ16レフト、デパーティングランウェイと16レフト、16ライト、トランジションレベル140、アドバイオオンイニシャルコンタクトユーハブインフォメーションマイク。
Alright, so go ahead and I'll switch over to clearance and I'll split the video here again. Be right back. Alright, part 3. Let's go ahead and get our aircraft set up. So while the passengers are boarding, I'm going to go ahead and close down this guy. Let's go ahead and boot this guy up. So I have this in a semi-cold and dark state. You probably are going to start experimenting with the different states. So right now, the way I have it set up on my PMDG setup is my startup state is one that I call boot, which is not quite the default state, which I think is also here. There's one. It's actually, the default state is not written in here. And I can show you how to get that, but I created one called boot where it's not fully cold and dark, because cold and dark actually, it makes gameplay a lot more complicated, especially when you're at night. You have to use a flashlight to navigate around the cockpit. So I like having it kind of in this semi-cold and dark state. It is ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and let's move our view up top. And see, the battery's already on, so that's ready to go. I already have the ground power set up, so all we need to do is click that on, and voila, our autopilot now has come to life. And let's go ahead and go back. All right, so the first things first, let me turn the lights down a little bit. That's another thing. I do not like playing in the bright, so that looks better. So there's the little LED hack. Sorry, let me bring the light down to, there we go. That's nice. Okay, let's turn the backlights on. So this is where, okay, this is where, turn the volume down on that. All right, so this is where the Stream Deck really comes into play. So we have our cockpit lights and our display lights. So let's turn the display unit up, turn that off. So we can do this, turn off the display. Also turns off the display down here as well. Like this. I don't think I actually guided you through this before with a voiceover, did I? All right, next is the panel lighting. So let's turn the backlight on. You can see the backlight's now turning on over here too. Turn it back down. So this one wheel can actually control all this. Lovely. All right, and then our floodlight. So this is where this light here would be controlled by this over here. So the floodlight here turns these guys on. And that's what I've been trying to replicate with this little hack down here. All right. Cool, let's go back to our main display, and where are we at? Okay, so our PFD and ND are still in kind of the unbooted state, so we'll need to go up to our IRU. We'll set IRS mode to nav, get these two started up. And we're still blank. So in order to do that, we need to go to our FMC. This is where the PFP really comes into play. So let's start tinkering with this. We go to FMC, go to the ident page. We'll go pause in it for position in it, and it's asking us to set our IRS position because the IRS is still taking time to boot up. We'll tap the next page, pull in the GPS left location, put that in the scratch pad here, click previous page, and we can just tap this button here on the R4, and now the last position is set. We're ready to go, and I'm going to leave the ref, airport, and the gates blank because we're going to pull those in from SimBrief. All right, back over to our simulator here. Because I restarted the flight, we're going to go to electronic flight bag, request data from SimBrief. Once the PMDG is pulled down the SimBrief data, we can then also go back to our FMC, tap on flight plan request, and you can see the SimBrief route for RJFF to RJOB. So we'll tap L2 button, and you can go ahead and just load the route if you want, or you can set the fuel based on the SimBrief calculation and the payload for the 0 fuel weight if you want to. So I'm just going to go ahead and set payload, set fuel, and then set the route. This makes it a lot easier so that I don't have to keep typing in manually on the next page, which you will see. This part does take a little bit of time. They try to simulate it so that it's kind of if you were using ACARS and pulling down the data over the radio. So I'm going to go ahead and do the uplink. I just love how that message light comes up, and the execute light should light up as well. Let's wait for that. It's usually about 30 seconds. There we go. So ready to activate. So we tap activate. The execute light button turns on. Let's go ahead and execute. All right. So now we have our origin and destination and our flight number pulled in, which is great. I don't have to manually type that in every time. Now the performance initialization page, this is where, real co-pilot will actually go in and then take the information from the flight briefing, which you can actually get on Volanta too, which is cool. If you go back to Volanta and you tap on down here, there's the briefing button. Dog page here. See, so this is the actual flight brief, flight plan that you can actually go back and used to manually type in all this stuff here, but you know me. I mean, when you're strapped on time and you only have like an hour to fly, because the wife won't let you fly any more than that, anything to save time and get you up in the air faster is appreciated. So here, I would just click the perf init request button, the R5 button here. It'll light up in gray. Tap it one more time. Give it a few seconds here. The load button should come up here. Got it, there it is. So the perform initialization uplink is ready. The load button is here, so we're going to click on L6 and execute. So before we've executed, everything's in small font size. I don't know if you can tell here. Once I tap on the execute button, you'll notice everything gets big font size, which means it's been loaded and committed. So normally I'd have to type all this in manually, but it's pulled in automatic, which is really great. All right, next step, we need to go to N1. I'm not going to set the outside air temperature. I'm just going to assume that it's fine. We're going to go with a full 26K N1 takeoff. We're not going to derate our engines. You've probably seen videos of, real flights will actually derate the engine to like takeoff 1, takeoff 2, or takeoff B. This is to use less thrust on takeoff so that it uses less fuel, prolongs the life of the engines, and also is eco-friendly, saves fuel, less noise, so for noise abatement. But I'm just going to stick with 100%, 26K N1 thrust. We'll use the default climb. Okay, so now next item is takeoff. So we're gonna go with a flaps 5 setting. So we'll set flaps 5, and then our center of gravity, we'll just tap that twice. It'll automatically compute. And our takeoff trim, vertical trim is gonna be 4.41. So let's go over to our trim wheel. Oh, I'm actually accidentally spinning it. So right now the trim is at 3.86. I could do this with the mouse, but because you and I both have our lovely Thrustmasters, you can use this to set your trim to 4.41 using our little pickle switch over here. So that's set. And now we need to set our V1, V2, VR rotate speeds. So in order to do that, we need to set up what runway we're going to take off from. So we're going to hit departures and arrivals. We'll go to departure, and this is where we come back to our Beyond ATC. So let's bring back the volume and go to clearance.
Japan Air 3130, looking to pick up our clearance to Okayama Airport.
Aircraft calling for clearance. Stay call sign.
Japan Air 3130.
Japan Air 3130, Fukuoka delivery. Expect runway 16 left. Hakata 5 departure with the Fukuoka transition. Initial climb to 6,000 feet. Squawk 2346.
Hakata 5 departure with the Fukuoka transition. Squawk 2346. Japan Air 3130.
All right. So we've gotten our instructions. We're going 16 left with the Hakata 5 transition, or sorry, the Hakata 5 departure. And they did mention the DGC transition, but that's already going to be loaded in our Hakata 5. So we'll go ahead and before we execute, let's go to the legs page now. And we should see, yep, see DGC is actually already shown in our, oops, yep, DGC is shown up in our route. And we'll go ahead and execute. So we've got everything loaded in there. Let's take a look as we just kind of skip through all the pages. We don't have an arrival airport in there yet set, so let us do that too. So on our sim brief, we've set ourselves up for the Okayama 07 arrival. So we'll go back to departures and arrivals. Go to our JOB arrival, and we'll have flown this yesterday. So they gave me an ILS Yankee 07 Inuk transition. Do we have that? Yes, we do. So let's go back. We'll click on the Inuk transition and hit execute. Now on our legs page, if we go next, now we have Inuk and Asimo all the way down to runway 07. So yeah, our route is set up. We're now ready to go back to our N1 limit page, go to takeoff, and you should see now the QRH is showing the recommended speeds for V1 rotate and for V2, which we can then just tap these guys, load those in, and we will now set our autopilot. So autopilot is going to set our speed to 142, our V2 speed. So let's load that in. Okay. I think the air traffic control wanted us to climb initially to 6,000. So we'll go ahead and set our autopilot to 6,000. And for the heading, I like to set the heading for the runway heading. So I think it's 160. Of course, you should use a Jeppesen chart to check what your runway heading is, but I'm just going to eyeball it for right now. For the navigation display, I want to make sure that we're on the, let's see, mode 10 is what I want, because 20 is a little too zoomed out for takeoff, so we'll set it to 10. We'll set the traffic button turned on so that we can see traffic. I'll keep it on map mode, and I think they give us the let's see, hold on, let's go back to our ATIS. I want my QNH.
Landing runway 16 left. Departing runway to 16 left, 16 right. Transition level 140. Advise on initial contact, you have information November. 福岡エアポートインフォメーションノーベンバー01210 Wind 080 at 5 Visibility 10 miles or more Hugh clouds at 2500 Temperature 20 2.06 QNH
1024.
1024 Wind 350 at 8
Spin this guy around. This is where the PDC comes in. So we can set
Departing runway to 16 left
1024. All right, we're all set. I'm gonna leave the course headings blank for right now because normally you would set it to your departing runway as well. I mean, we could set this to 160. I think it's good practice to do this, just in case if you had to return back to the airfield due to like a failure. So it's just one less thing that you have to think about in case of an emergency, but let's leave it that way. All right, let's see. I think we're almost ready to set ourselves up for takeoff or pushback. Last couple of things. Let's go ahead and set LNAV, and we'll set VNAV because we are flying the Hakata 5 standard instrument departure. So we can set LNAV, VNAV. Auto throttle, we can arm it now if you want. You can arm it right before. That's part of the checklist that we need to check before takeoff. And I guess we are ready. So let's go ahead and now move to the next phase. I'm going to stop the video once and we'll pick up with pushback. All right, ready to push back now. So let's see, let's got our clearance, and we just need to now set our APU and everything up. So we'll now go back to our overhead panel. Our passengers are all boarded. Fueling is complete. So we're going to go ahead and start by powering up. Yaw damper on. We'll turn the left aft fuel pump on, get that up and running, and then I'm going to go down here. I'm going to turn my APU on here. And while we wait for the engine gas temperature, or sorry, the exhaust gas temperature on the APU to go up, we'll start with the window heat. Turn those on, and we'll turn the probe heats on. Turn electric 1 and 2 pumps, hydraulic pumps on. And as you can see now, our EGT is coming up. And meanwhile, let's go ahead and get the fasten seatbelt signs on. We'll set that to auto, keep it on auto. Let's see, isolation valve is set to open, and our left and right air conditioner packs are off, which we need for engine start. We'll set the APU bleed on once we actually switch over. Normally I think you're supposed to wait a minute, but you know, okay, there we go. So we'll go ahead and switch power over to APU. All right, power is now switched over from ground power to APU. We'll turn the APU bleed on so that we can then start the engine with the APU. And let's see, let's go ahead and set the logo lights on and wing on. Position is on steady for right now because we're not in the air. I'm going to turn the anti-collision light on. That should trigger something to happen. We need to let the ground crew know that we're going to turn the engines on, so we are now ready to go. All right, let's go ahead and set our parking brake and unset the chocks. So we'll go to menu, go to FS Actions, Ground Services, and we will release the ground power because we're on APU now, and we can then remove the wheel chocks. Okay, so that's everything that we need in order for GSX now to be able to get us ready to push. Let's go ahead and go to GSX.
You need to set parking brakes to request ground service.
Yes, that's right. Okay, this is where the rudders come in. Let's push the rudder pedals down for brake and our little handy dandy parking brake. Okay, that's set. Let's just make sure that the parking brake is set. Just gonna use our little switch here down. And yeah. All right, cool. All right, now we can then request GSX for our pushback. And prepare for pushback and departure. All of our engine controls are actually here. So the overhead panel that I've been really wanting to buy, I don't really need because I can do it all here. Yes, we are. All right, so our parking brake is set. Let's go ahead and also set our air conditioning before we take off. So I'm going back into my, let's see, cruise page. So our cruise level today will be flight level 250, 25,000. We can set that here. All right, and our landing altitude I have to check when we get closer to Okayama. All right. Close the briefing panel. I just like having Volante open here so you can watch on the map as we're flying. Beauty is you know, if you're online at the same time, you can also watch me flying too. So, all right, I think it's waiting for something. What is it waiting for? Okay, there we go. So it wanted me to, let's see. It needs to know what direction I need to turn the aircraft. Okay. Let's see.
Japan Air 3130. Request to.
Sometimes that happens. Alright, let's bring Beyond AC back on. Should be pretty quick. Although the instruction should be nose facing right. Right, I think. Let's just double check. Oh no, nose should be facing left because we're going to take off 16, right? So we want to go that way. All right, let's get ourselves reconnected.
Beyond ATC connected.
God, that flap sounds so good. That's sexy. All right. Okay, ready to get our IFR clearance again.
Japan Air 3130. Ready to copy IFR clearance to Okayama Airport.
Japan Air 3130, Fukuoka delivery, expect runway 16 left, Hakata 5 departure, with the Fukuoka transition, initial climb to 6,000 feet. Fukuoka 5135.
Ah, we didn't set our squawk.
Hakata 5 departure with the Fukuoka transition. Squawk 5135.
Okay, so we can
Japan
set the
Air
squawk here.
3130.
5, 1.
Japan Air 3130, lead back correct. Contact ground 121 decimal 7 10 ready for pushback OR engine start.
Ground 121.7 when ready for pushback or engine start. Japan Air 3130.
Okay, so now we're ready for pushback and engine start.
Japan Air 3130, gate 10, request pushback.
Japan Air 3130, Fukuoka ground, pushback and engine start approved. Face west.
Face west. Okay, so let's continue the pushback.
Pushback and engine start approved. Face west. Japan Air 3130.
So we need to pick nose left.
Air pitch 520, gate
Okay.
2, request
Let's
pushback.
move these parking brakes.
Air pitch 520, Fukuoka ground, pushback and engine start approved.
All right.
Face
Cabin attendant standby at door. Normal deckです。Cabin attendant head to slide bar. Head to slide bar.
Alright, we're going to start the engines up. Start with engine number 2. We'll set to ground. And we want to check our N1 and N2 values. Gotta wait for N2 to come up to 3.2, anywhere from 2.8 to 3.2, and our N2 value should be above 28. So ready to add fuel to engine number 2. Lights up. I can hear it starting to spool up. Over here.
ただいまから非常用設備についてご案内いたします。皆様どうぞ必ずご覧ください。なお、ご質問がございましたら、どうぞ乗務員にお知らせください。Ladies and gentlemen, we will shortly be showing our safety demonstration. Please pay close attention. If you have any questions, please ask your cabin attendant. Thank you.
Turn engine 2 is ready, and now we can switch on engine 1. I love how you can just hear everything going on in the background. You don't have to do anything manually. So previously I had to do all of like the cabin announcements and everything manually. Now this is all fully scripted. It's using that free that flight announcement app. I think we're ready to add fuel now to engine number 1. Set the parking brake for the ground guys.
Keep your seatbelt fastened whenever seated in case of sudden turbulence.
Alright, and we're almost ready.
Strictly prohibited on this flight. Use of any electronic devices that emit
Okay, we're all set. So let's go ahead and let ground know that we're ready. Good engine start.
Cockpit to ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
In case of emergency, please follow our instructions.
Set. Last couple things we need to set is now our flaps. So we'll set flaps to 5. Flap 5 set. Auto throttle got disarmed, so we'll rearm that again. Make sure that's on. Let's go through the checklist here. So check recall. Recall is off. Flight controls. Flight controls. So this is where you want to actually use this guy down here to check. As we push down, everything goes down, up, left, right, and the rudder. Okay. Alright, flight controls ready. Flaps set to 5, 5, and green. So we should have green light on the flap. There. And we're at flaps 5. Perfect. Stab trim we checked earlier at 4.41 units. Right. Alright, cockpit door. I mean, we don't have a cockpit door on this one. Locked, and takeoff briefing completed. Alright. Let's now get ready to roll. And I think timing wise it's just perfect. The guy with the
Carrying baggage will block the aisle.
bypass pin is now walking off. Safety video is probably ready to finish. And now we're finally ready to actually start using this guy here. Alright, so let's release parking brake. And we're ready to roll. I did forget to do something while I was actually carried away. We forgot to switch our power from EPU over to the engines now that the engines are turned on, so we need to turn the fuel pumps. All fuel pumps, this should have been on. This is a boo-boo on my part. we're now switching power over to the engines instead of the APU. APU now becomes on standby. And what else do we want to do? Turn the air conditioners on, otherwise our passengers are going to complain. Set our isolation off. See, that's what I didn't hear earlier. You can hear the air conditioning running now. Okay, we'll turn the APU bleed off and we will cut APU. All right, that's how we're supposed to be set up. Turn wing glide off. Yeah, I think everything else looks good. All right, ready to go. So now let's request taxi.
Japan Air 3130, ready to taxi to the active. Runway 16 left taxi via Kilo 6, Alpha 2, Echo 2, Japan Air 3130.
One thing I really like about Beyond ATC is that because the flight, or the taxi path is not in sync with Microsoft Flight Simulator, this is using its own navigation. You have a map mode on here, which you can then use as a guidance for where you are on the airport. So as you're kind of navigating to the runway, you'll use this map over here in order to guide you. So I will go ahead and, this thing really wants me to take a really funny turn, but I'm actually going to do a little bit different. So here we go. Let's get ourselves to the runway. Power should only be up to 30% N1 for taxi. And let's make sure that our parking brake is released. Yes, it is. And we're moving. Yay. All right. And our maximum ground speed should be no greater than 15 in the apron. We're at 6, 7. So let's now use our rudder. Start steering left. And then turn onto Alpha here.
Contact Tower 118.4, Japan Air 3130.
Sorry, this is turning into a long ass video, but this is my complete rundown that I wanted to do for you, kind of showing all the different parts and pieces and apps that I'm using to see or show you how I'm running everything. And also you can kind of see ourselves here on Volante as well in real time too, so that's also fun. So there's an airplane landing right now, which means I am definitely going to have to stop. So let's bring ourselves to the holding point here. Top with my right toe brake. Oh, that is just buttery smooth. Okay, so let's go ahead and set our parking brake again. And we need to call for our departure.
Japan Air 3130, holding short, runway 16 left.
Yeah, if I wanted to, I could actually use my headset and I can talk, which I could have shown you, but I'll show you in a different video. Oh, interesting. They're already giving me clearance for takeoff. Oh well, okay. Alright, we need to set our engines to continuous, landing lights on. Sorry, I forgot to turn my taxi lights on, so we'll set those now. Set. Oh. Alright, let's go.
Please make sure that the seat belt is securely fastened. Thank you.
better get moving because that other plane might land on top of us. We'll do a rolling start then. All right, ready. Let's set thrust to 50%. Stabilized. Oh, our auto throttle's off again. Toga. Uh-oh, that's not good. Alright. Nope, something's not right. Something's not configured right. I rushed it. Why is that? Alright, let's abort the takeoff.
A few moments later.
Alright, so we're gonna take off here. Go ahead and get ourselves lined up. Looks about right. Alright, set parking brakes. Flaps 5 set. Let's just make sure that we have everything set up. SWS is turned on our overhead. So engines are set to continuous mode. And transponder is on. Let's just double check. So we are on TXRX, transmit receive, and our auto brakes are set to rejected takeoff. So we're set. Set parking brake. Parking brake set. Auto throttle armed. Make sure that that's on. All right. Okay, release parking brakes, and we'll have manual foot brakes here as power up throttle to 4,000, 5,000, and 1. Once we're stable, and go Toga. Full throttle, and line ourselves up. It's positive pressure on our stick here. Sorry, 80 knots. Relax pressure. Keep the sun line. And rotate. Go positive rate. Hold ourselves at 15 degrees. And gear up. Gear up. Coming up, holding ourselves at 15 degrees, nose up, and we can bring our flaps up to 1. Let's hold the nose down. I'm going to set the autopilot on. Command A, push, select. Alright, let's let that thing take over, and our flaps are actually to be retracted, so let's pull those up. Nice. And bring the throttles back down because we have auto throttle running anyway. And we are off. Man, that felt good. That new throttle felt really good. So yeah, that's a quick tutorial of all the little tools I'm using and all the hardware. So yeah, happy flying. If you haven't done so, definitely recommend downloading some airplanes off of either FlightSim.2 or from the other one, SimPlaza. If you wanted to install some of the those cool liveries, like this one here, the Japan Airlines Osaka Expo Gundam one, which I like flying. Yeah, the I love having these cabin announcements. This is so cool. This just makes it feel more real. All right. See you later. Happy flying. All right, now we're at cruise. Quite a bit of ways now. Just flying over Kitakyushu. So let's see. We can start kind of playing around with our. First of all, the reason why I put these lights on here was because I couldn't see the switches. So let's turn this up. Let's zoom out a little bit here. Alright. There we go. So we have to turn our weather on. So that's where this thingy comes in. No weather, that's good. We can switch this to terrain mode. So let's look at terrain. Should have some terrain on this. There we go. So there's some mountainous tops there that we're gonna have to avoid. A couple things. I mean, I'm not like I'm trying to sell you on this, but you know, having the flight computer, the PFP, really is a godsend. Like, this is the one thing that I actually started off buying. I didn't even buy this thing first. I bought this thing first because I thought the flight computer is such an awesome thing that in order to use it, you actually have to have flight sim. So that's what really got me to buying this. But as you start flying flights on this thing, like, you're gonna realize that not having the physical one is such a pain in the ass when you're having to go in here. And you could do it this way, or you could use the this mode and then type everything manually with your mouse, which I think is a pain in the ass. So using this to be able to go through and, like, in the next phase, so I need to check, for example, I'll give you a good example of what I use it for. So as we get ready to land, I'm gonna have to set some fixes, like range rings. And in order to do that, you need to go to the next page, find the runway that you're gonna be landing on, tap on that, bring that into the scratch pad, you go to fix, and then tap on fix, and then /10. So that'll put one green ring right around 10 nautical miles. We use that for making sure that our final approach is set. So our ILS should be completely set up by then. I set one at 14. This is just for our initial VR localizer to capture. And then at 5 miles, I want to make sure that my landing gears are out and my final landing flaps are set. So by doing this, I don't know if you can see this or not. Actually, here, let's do this. This is where also the combination of the PFP and the PDC come into play. So I am going to go to plan mode. Now what that's done is it's changed this button here on the PFP to step. And you can see over on my navigation display, as I push this step, it's going to move the airplane along to these various waypoints along my flight plan here. So you can kind of see how this CTR, the center, is actually moving to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and then it'll cycle back to our current one. So if I want to change the range, for example, like I'm kind of zoomed in pretty tight on this, I can then set, keep twisting the knob over here. I'm at 320 right now, but I'm going to bring this back to 160, 80, and I think 80 is fine. So then now we're going to go to our step button here, and if I step through this, you see those little green rings that I just created? Zoom in a little bit more so you can see that. There we go. Maybe a little bit more. Right. So as I step through this. So right at this waypoint Saru, that's when I'm 14 nautical miles out. This is where I want to actually set flaps 1, get my initial flap settings ready, and I want to be on the final. So the VOR localizer button on my autopilot should be pushed at that point. And then at 10 nautical miles, you'll notice that it straightens out, so it's nice and parallel with the runway. This is where I want to make sure that by then I should be on the ILS and the approach mode button should be pushed. Then step through. This is our green range ring here after Asimo. So where it says 5, that's where I should have my final flaps, landing flaps set, and my gear should be down. So having these fixes is really just to kind of give you reminders of what you should be doing at what point in time along your flight, and being able to set that with your PFP and using the PDC to watch it over here on the ND, and then be able to kind of control everything on the autopilot. This is really why having at least these 3 pieces, right? The computer, the EFIS, and the autopilot is the bare minimum that you need to have in order to be able to do all of this stuff, like without having to use your mouse. And then, of course, you've got your Thrustmaster, which is awesome for the level of realism and just being able to do the actual landing, the Bravo, and the pedals. Just adds to the emergence. So really, you know, having everything that I've got here right now, I'm perfectly happy. I don't really need anything more in order to fly. Anything else would just be a bonus. So, anyhow, let's take a look. Where are we at? I feel like my flight simulator is struggling. It is getting really, really slow. There we go. Getting pretty close, actually. Oh no, we're not. Sorry, I was way off. No, we still have quite a ways to go. Alrighty, that's it for now. Alright, getting ready to land now. Just got clearance to descend to 6,000. We're now at 11,700 feet, and we're gonna start our descent. Something's wrong here. For some reason, our VNAV is not working correctly, so I'm gonna go manual. I'm gonna set my vertical speed. This is where the autopilot comes in handy. Uh-oh, they're giving me vectors now.
Heading 080, Japan Air 3130.
So go 080. And we're going to break from our LNAV approach. By the way, as we're now getting ready to land, I need to set our landing flaps. So we'll use our flight computer again, set landing flaps 30. That'll set our VREF speed to 138 knots on our land. So we have flaps. Okay, back to here again, and we're now at 10,000 feet. There we go. Seatbelt sign is now on.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing shortly, so would you please take your fasten your seatbelt and refrain from using the restroom. Thank you.
Cool. Alright, so at 10,000 feet we need to turn our landing lights and our taxi lights on, so tap that. We'll turn... Is this focus not working here? There we go. Alright, landing lights. Taxi light is on, and then we'll turn our taxi turn-off lights, also left and right on. We need to set our engine to continuous mode for both left and right. Strobes we don't have to touch. APU, you can turn it on if you want. If you want ground power as soon as you land, so that we keep the air conditioners running and then get the passengers unloaded faster. So go ahead and
right. Heading 090, 5,000 feet, until established. Cleared RF Yankee runway 25, Japan Air 3130.
Japan Air 3130. Contact Okayama Tower 124.3. Have a good day.
Contact Tower 124.3, Japan Air 3130.
Alright, also going to set the auto brakes to 3.
Okayama Tower, Japan Air 3130, RNAV Yankee runway 25.
Japan Air 3130. Okayama Tower. Window 26 0 up 6. Runway 25 clear.
Alright,
Runway
clear to land.
25 cleared to land. Japan Air 3130.
So the other thing with the PDC that was really kind of helpful was this button over here called the center button. If you tap on this, you'll notice that my navigation display actually changes modes to this mode here, which actually has the VSD or vertical situation display. And what this does is it actually helps me to check my descent profile to ensure that I am actually on the proper glide path to be able to hit these little triangles where between the triangles, as you can see here, and then land on that pink line, which is going to be my glide slope. So everything's looking pretty good. My speed is pretty well maintained. I'm going to bring my speed down now to 209 knots to match. Zoom in a little bit more here so we can see it a little bit better. They actually changed the runway on us. It was supposed to be straight in approach on runway 7, but then they put us on runway 25, so now we're going to have to go around and make a U-turn and then land. Unfortunately, I can't use the ILS on this approach. So as you can see on our init ref page here, the information on the left-hand side here, which would normally have my nav1 radio frequency for the ILS, and also the course settings that I need to set in here aren't there. So I have no ILS. We're going to have to basically do this RNAV visual landing on runway 25, which will be interesting, trying to hold the camera and do this at the same time. But we'll try to use the autopilot as long as we can so that I don't have to actually use the thrustmaster too much other than for the final landing. And then I can kind of show you the Bravo throttles in action. So let's take a look back on our legs page again. We've got not much left. And again, those range rings that I made earlier, they're not really going to help me too much because I have to make this weird U-turn. But we shall see. All right, we're now at 5,000, and you can see the pink line is our approach path. So we need to bring ourselves down a little bit more, but they told us no less than 5,000. Okay, we'll set ourselves for 4,000, and we'll target that pink line here. 3,400, and we'll set that. So our we are not on VNAV and LNAV anymore, so we have to do this manually. Go to vertical speed, and then bring the dotted pink line down so that it meets right there. And the white line is now pointing to the dashed pink line, which is what we want. And I've gone way out just for this demonstration. Let us now turn. I'm going to bring my speed down too, because we need to be at 143. And we'll start slowing down, and we'll set our heading to intercept the final. So I'm going to eyeball this, start turning. Beam the final, so our dashed pink line should kind of be perpendicular to the dashed white line for the approach into the runway, while we keep our eyeball on the vertical situation. It should hold us at 3,400 feet for the final. It's funny is, when you start flying instrument, you're looking out of the window less and staring at your little glass cockpit more. But that's okay. That's the way that real pilots fly, right? I mean, if you were to put a blindfold on and you had to fly with your eyes closed, just... Oh, there we go. That's our... So we're going to fly in on this. If there was a dotted line here, we're going to try to land on this approach here. So we'll come in this way and then make our final turn into the runway. Let's see if we can do this. I'm going to try not to touch my yoke at all. And we'll try to do this just using the autopilot controls here.
2,500.
All right, yes. Bring our speed down to 160, just so that we're slowed down enough. Oh, there's some mountain tops. We do need to be careful here because there's some hills. This is actually pretty dangerous. All right, we might get the terrain warning. But, oh, and there's some other dude flying over here. Gotta be careful for that too. All right, let's keep an eye on the dotted lines here. We're at almost... Radio altimeter says that we're at 2290, which is pretty close to the ground. We should be careful on that. And the reason why I brought us out all the way out here was so that I could kind of use those range rings again that I was talking about earlier, which we set up for runway 7. We're now going to use it for runway 25. So right at the edge of the 14 nautical mile marker is where we want to start our approach. Now, of course, we're not using ILS this time, so really won't make a difference, but it does help me kind of get situated so that we can get our vertical descent profile set up at 14. And then at 10, we're going to want to make sure that we have our speed set up, and then at 5 we'll have our flaps and landing gear ready. We could actually use 10 as an indicator for our landing gear as well, if you need to slow your airplane down further. Okay, so now we are coming up pretty close. I'm going to start the turn inbound in a second, and we're going to have to really eyeball this because we have no guidance. Non-precision approach. All right. In the meantime, let's make sure that everything else is set up. So we need to make sure that our speed brake is set to armed. Nice. And we can...
Airspeed low. Airspeed low.
Yeah, I know our airspeed is a little low. Okay, our speed brake is armed. Green light. Let's go ahead and start making our turn here. Yeah, I know we're heading slow.
Airspeed low. Airspeed low.
Yes, I know. And the reason for that is because I did not set my flaps. So let's set our
airspeed low. Airspeed low.
Flaps 5. Let's finish making our turn now. We will now target our final approach fix. Ooh, it is windy. Very, very windy. Alright, flaps are 5 right at the moment. We're at 157. We can go ahead and bring our flaps down to flaps 25. We're now coming up at 10 miles. That warning buzzer is because I did not have my landing gear down before I went past flaps 10. So something to keep in mind. You probably already ran into this already. Gear has to be down before you extend beyond flaps 10. Let's zoom in a little bit more so we can straighten out our approach. Okay. Should be lined up here. Okay, our speed is good. We're now at 10 miles out. Man, this is windy. All these mountains, like the hills right here, you're getting a lot of thermal coming off of it, and a lot of wind being pushed around. I don't know if you can tell, but it is gusty. Alright. And let's go ahead and, this is something I forgot to do while I was chatting with you here. To set our descent profile up. So we're going to have to do a little bit of quick management here. We'll set our speed down to our final approach speed, 143. And
2,500.
Glide path is looking okay. Well, we can recover. We'll set our flaps 30 now as we approach the 5 nautical mile marker. We'll set our altitude to 0 because we don't have an ILS to guide us. So I'm just going to use that as our. There we go. So now we've got our purple dashed line set up with the runway. So it should take us straight in. Let's take a look visually now. There's the runway. Runway's in sight. All right. Now we got to start flying this thing manually. I'm going to leave the auto throttle on for right now. Speed brake is armed. We're ready to land, and I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the autopilot. This is actually kind of a tricky airport to land manually, just because, oh wow, there's a lot of gusting going on. I'm gonna have to use the rudder to straighten us out here. It's really gusty.
500.
Yep.
400.
Okay.
Sink rate.
Yep.
Sink rate. 100. Sink rate. Sink rate. 30. 20. 10.
And that was pretty shitty because I did not have my left hand on the. Alright, let's see if we can still recover this.
Exit right at Alpha, Japan Air 3130.
皆様、ただいま着陸いたしました。飛行機が完全に停止し、シートベルト着用のサインが消えるまで、シートベルトはそのままお締めください。お出の様をお分けになる際には、手荷物が滑り出ることがありますので、十分ご注意ください。
That was a pretty crappy landing, but still, we still landed. At least we're in one piece. This is where I'm gonna need a camera where I can mount it to my head so that I can actually talk while I'm doing this. Alright.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just landed. Please make sure to keep your seatbelt fastened until aircraft stopped completely and the seatbelt sign is off. Please take care when you open your overhead compartments as the items will slip out. You may now use all electronic devices. Please check to make sure you leave nothing behind, especially cell phones and electronic devices. Thank you for flying with Japan Airlines, a member of the One World Alliance. Thank you.
Japan Air 3130. Request taxi to company gate.
Japan Air 3130, gate 4 taxi via Alpha.
Gate 4 via Alpha. Japan Air 3130.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're gonna need to. Oh, there. See, GSX is already automatically setting the gate for me, and we will use Japan Airlines. Yeah, we'll go back to our handy little map here. All right. So bring this in. Sorry to bore you with all this. We're just taxiing straight into our parking spot here. Keeping an eye on our ground speed at 17 knots. We should actually pull off the throttle. I love having the rudder so we can just steer with our feet. Yeah, we're coming up on the gate here. Let's slow down just a tad, add a little bit of brakes. Forgot to turn my landing lights and my taxi lights off because we're gonna have to turn those off as we turn in here to park. Slow down. So we're at gate 3. And alright, we should be about 6 knots ground in order to land at gate 5. And there's gate 4. Let's go ahead and make sure our engines are start valves are set to off, which we should have done when we landed. Also, we have to make sure that our weather radars are turned off before we go into the gate. Otherwise, you will end up frying everybody on the ground with your radar. And we need to turn that off. Sorry, 1 second here. Let's turn. Lost too much thrust. Slow down. Watch our marshaller here. There we go. Oh wow, that's perfect. I've actually never hit a 000 before. That's awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get ready to power off. So brakes on, set, and now we go back to menu, FS Actions, ground services. We need to set our chocks, request ground power, and go back to our overhead panel. Wait for the ground power. So ground power light is on. Switch to ground power. And we can now shut off our engines down here. It's hard to see.
業務連絡です。乗務員はドアモードをマニュアルに変更してください。
Okay. And request deboarding.
Deboarding requested.
皆様お待たせいたしました。前方2箇所のドアよりどうぞご注意お降りください。お忘れ物なさいませんよう身の回りの品をよくお確かめください。今日のご搭乗誠にありがとうございました。今年も残りわずかとなってまいりました。どうぞ体調に気をつけてお元気にお過ごしください。バンコクと気温差がございます。お気をつけてお出かけまたお帰りください。Thank you very much for waiting, ladies and gentlemen. You may be prepared to front doors. Thank you and have a good evening. さようなら。
So having GSX really does kind of give you a little bit more of the immersion of the actual passenger part of the experience, and having the baggage and whatnot, just so that you're not just flying the airplane around, but you're actually flying passengers around. My little marshal are still standing there. And we should start seeing people come off the bus in a second here. I mean, off the airplane and boarding the bus.
Passengers deboarding starting.
There we go. While we're waiting for the passengers to go off, let's review our flight here in Volanta. So what was supposed to be this purple line straight in to runway 7 turned into a kind of a U-turn approach onto the opposite runway. Oh, there we go. First guy's coming off. Big, burly, hefty guy here. All right. So yeah, what was supposed to be a 07 approach turned into a 25 approach. We can see here, we landed a little bit late, very late. The pink line, or the pink aircraft icon here, shows you where you actually touched down. Wasn't really on the money, but minus 600 feet per minute, 1.3 Gs. So, not bad. I'll take it. At least my schedule was on time, as it shows. We took off at 12:28. Our schedule was 12:25. I don't know, for some reason it's showing me 11:57. This is a little bit weird, but yeah. All in all, I mean, at least we got our passengers to our destination safely, I guess, in one piece. So yeah, that's the full flight with my cockpit setup. Hope you had a good time learning a little bit about how I fly the aircraft here. If you have any questions, just let me know. Cool. See ya.